Well, now that you've heard a few of their arguments, do you dislike conservatives less than you did before?
Oh, that is so funny. Is this a parody? Am I getting clowned? She's like, so now that you've heard the arguments, I bet you're not hating conservatives as much, huh? You're right, Amala. I hate them more now. Thank you. You've managed to make me hate conservatives even more than I previously thought I did. Because before, I used to think there was this little glimmer of hope inside of me that maybe, just maybe, conservatives were just ignorant, but you're demonstrating that a good portion of conservatives are actually incredibly self-aware of their arguments, how their arguments can be perceived, how their arguments might even be wrong, and yet they just continue rolling with it cause liberal bad. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a video to review. A video review of good old PragerU. They've dropped a new video, you see, and let's read the title. Now, Chad, I'm sure you're going to have lots of good ideas for this one. Why do you hate conservatives? Question mark. Where do we start? Do you have all day? Why do you hate conservatives? Geez, maybe because they reinforce their dipshit ideas when it comes to God. Maybe when it comes to the fact that they're incredibly ignorant when it comes to the issues of trans people. Maybe it's because of the fact that they consistently pose as fun-loving American patriots, yet they consistently advocate to trample all over American values like the rights of gay people to get married, which is covered by the 14th Amendment, or the rights for protesters to burn the American flag, which is covered by the First Amendment. The big posers who claim that they love America, but the minute you do something they don't like, they trample all over the Constitution and then wipe their ass with it. Those are just a couple that have come to my mind off the top of my head. Oh yeah, they also are part of PragerU. So I think that alone is enough to hate conservatives as a whole. All of conservatives are guilty because PragerU exists.
Why do you hate conservatives?
We already answered that question. Also, shout out to Amala. It's Amala. Yeah. What's her name? Amala. Amala Ekpanobi. Okay, Amala. More like I'm a loser. Got him. Oh, she's not coming back from that one. Okay, seriously though, let's start.
Why do you hate conservatives? Well, let's not say hate. Let's say dislike, because you don't really hate anyone. You may dislike them because they want to ban abortion.
It's not even that they want to ban abortion. It's more so the way they go about it is not actually going to result in a reduction of abortion, and it's only going to result in negative impacts on women's autonomy. That's more the problem. The problem is that if you really wanted to stop abortion, or at least see significant decreases in abortion, you would be taking the Democrat approach, which is, unfortunately, abortion is something that is going to exist. It's never just going to cease to exist. It sucks. Even if you think it's evil, it's an evil that is, I don't want to say a necessary evil because it's not necessarily necessary, but the way in which you reduce that is going the Democrat route, advocating better sex ed, better contraceptive access, better education on contraceptive use. Whenever these types of policies are put in place, you see a reduction in abortion.
Conservatives say they're all for freedom, but when it comes to a woman's freedom to choose what she wants to do with her own body, they sing a different tune. You may dislike them because they oppress people of color and deny the fact that America is systemically racist.
Let's see. Oppress people of color and deny the fact that America is systemically racist. So again, yes, this is actually something I hate about conservatives. Congratulations, Amala loser. You've successfully pinpointed a very real reason as to why we all here fucking hate conservatives. And let me explain this. First of all, denying the fact that America is systemically racist. What do you mean America? People like to say that. You think all of America is systemically racist? There is this systemic racism in America. I don't know if you would say all of America, whatever. Is there systemic racism in America? Yes. What does that mean? What it means is there are policies that are put in place that, even if they are put in place with good intent, if they are resulting in negative and disproportionate consequences or outcomes for people of color, then it is systemic racism. It is that simple. Similarly to what I just said in the previous conversation, a lot of the times people will say things like, cops are racist and targeting black people. That's not a good approach to take, because you can't prove intent. We don't know that. And what we do know from the majority of statistics is that police tend to enter the police force with the desire to better their community. The problem is if there is widespread police corruption throughout the nation, because there are higher rates of police in the black area, black people are going to feel that corruption at disproportionately higher rates than opposed to, say, white people. That is just a fact of the matter. And of course, you go down the line, well, police are there because there's more crime. Well, why is there more crime? It's because there's more poverty. Why is there more poverty? Well, because of redlining and the drug war, which, what do you know? Oh, that was racism. Oh, yikes. Systemic racism is all around, okay? And conservatives themselves will acknowledge it also. The minute they need to shit on the black community, they will be quick to bring up the fact that, look at all the single mothers as soon as welfare was put in place. So you're saying there was a policy put in place that disproportionately negatively impacted black people? So systemic racism isn't real until it's real because it's convenient for your dipshit agenda. That's right. Okay, now I get it. Furthermore, another reason why I hate the argument is because not only are they denying factual reality that systemic racism is obviously a thing, the only logical alternative is that black people themselves individually are inferior or stupid some way. That's why I hate this argument as well, because if there's no system in place that is negatively impacting black people, then why is it that we are seeing generations upon generations of poverty in the black community? There's either a systemic problem here, or black people are all just kind of dumb and lazy, and they just don't really want to get up and work. They don't want to get a job. They're all lazy losers. Boo-hoo. That is actually so fucking dumb, and that in and of itself is racism. The only logical alternative to a refusal that America has systemic racism is a racist belief that black people are just inferior. It's really quite pathetic, but we're only 26 seconds in and I've already given you quite a big rant. Let's continue. Sorry.
Conservatives say that everybody is equal regardless of race, and that racism has little to no effect on the daily lives of people of color. So they just ignore the issue altogether. You may dislike them because they don't believe.
If they said that, they would be literally denying reality. And again, then why are black people disproportionately given the death sentence, Amala? Why is it when you compare rates of black people given the death sentence as opposed to white people who've committed similar crimes, given the death sentence, black people are sentenced to death more often? Why is that? Is there some failure on the black person then? Did he look a little bit too thuggish in the courtroom? The only alternative is literally a racist bullshit belief that black people, again, are just inferior.
You may dislike them because they don't believe in climate change. Scientists keep telling us we're overheating the planet, and conservatives don't seem to care. They're more concerned about profits than people. But
conservatives deny factual reality because it's inconvenient for their fifis. So yeah, of course they deny climate change. That's part and parcel of being a conservative. It's like, I am a conservative. I will now no longer take into account facts. I am ruled by feelings. That's what it means to be a conservative.
What good is money if you have no planet to spend it on? You may dislike them because they're obsessed with guns. How are we ever going to stop gun violence if we don't get guns off the streets? And how are we ever going to get guns off the streets if conservatives block every common sense gun law? You may dislike them because they're so intolerant. What's the harm of calling somebody by their preferred pronouns?
Literally, I like how she's like just giving a better a better argument. You might not like them because it's just they refuse to just use simple language terminology like pronouns. Yeah, actually, yes. Amala, I didn't even think of that one. Thank you for pointing that out. Another reason to hate these dumb fucks.
Why can't conservatives just show some compassion instead of obsessing over every kind of behavior they don't like?
True.
You may dislike them because if they got their way, they'd get rid of democracy and establish an authoritarian theocracy. Bye-bye separation of church and state.
Not all of them, but definitely some of them want to. I mean, what happened on January 6th was a deliberate act of anti-democracy because they were trying to stand in the way of a democratic process where everybody casts their votes. So yeah, there's that. And then you say bye-bye separation of church and state. Maybe you're trying to like strawman the left here, but you realize that Laura Boebert not too long ago was just saying we should do away with the separation of church and state. The straw man is kind of lame if it's actually based in reality.
Separation of church and state. Hello, fascism. After all that, you might sum up conservatives with one word.
Evil.
Ugh. If any of the—
Okay, yeah. Actually, yeah. I like this Amala chick so far. Maybe this isn't so bad after all, you know? Ugh.
This resonates with you, I get it. I've been there. But And this surprised
By the way, every single time we have to hear how she used to be a liberal, guys.
me. I found they actually have reasons for thinking the way they do. Here are some of them.
Wow.
On abortion. To start, we can agree that no one likes abortion. But there is a clear
Okay.
divide on the issue. Progressives focus their attention on the mother. Conservatives, while they have compassion for the mother, focus their attention on the baby. They see a human being growing in a mother's womb as innocent and vulnerable. Those babies deserve to be protected, since they obviously can't protect themselves.
So again, the question is literally just back to, if we all agree collectively that abortion is bad, then your goal should be to reduce abortion rates. That should be the goal. And the way in which you do that, again, is the Democrat route, not the Republican route of all abortion is now illegal. Have fun out there, ladies. Hee hee. Oh, you got raped? Tough luck. Oh, you could die giving birth?
On racism, conservatives don't deny that racist people exist, but when it comes to the narrative of systemic racism, conservatives are unconvinced.
Yeah, okay, first of all, conservatives aren't always quick to acknowledge that racist people exist. Yeah, you're a conservative. You're surrounded by racist people. Checkmate, conservatard. That's the first one, okay? You can't just say they're unconvinced. Unconvinced about the stats? The platitude of data has failed to convince you? So what will convince you then? Also keep in mind that these dipshits will quickly, the conservative dipshits, will quickly acknowledge other systemic inequalities like systemic sexism. Men are disproportionately sentenced far worse and far longer sentences for the same crimes as opposed to women when women commit those crimes. I guarantee you the conservatives would be like, yeah, that's a problem. Oh yeah, it's a system that's hurting men. That's a problem. But then when we're talking about systemic racism, their brain just turns off, even more than it already has been shut off because they're conservative.
Of course, there are disparities in this country, but why assume that these disparities are because of racism?
Because it's not an assumption and it's based on the factual and historical information, Amala. Why assume? We're not assuming, cuck. We know that because there were racist policies like redlining and like the drug war, it has caused these disparities. We know that, Amala, because we know about history. And unless you chuckle fucks are not only going to take the position that, well, if there's no systemic racism, I guess that just means all black people are stupid because it could only mean an individual failure, you're also now denying the very obvious reality that history has consequences.
Good schools, good parents, good habits, and good communities would go much further toward alleviating poverty and expanding opportunity than a lifetime of racial justice movements.
What? Wait. Oh my god. Okay, racial justice movements, especially like the current BLM, advocates to address systemic racism. You realize there are disproportionately shittier schools in the black community. Why? Disproportionate poverty rates, redlining, systemic racism. Address systemic racism, you fix the shittier schools, okay? There's one. Not good family dynamics? Maybe if you're disproportionately living in poverty and both parents need to work to survive, or the father is more likely to go to prison because he had a 0.5 milligram of marijuana on him, then that kind of breaks up families, you know? Maybe if we can address the poverty, which is there because of historical racist policies, we can actually better the family unit. So maybe addressing systemic racism would actually result in a betterment of the family unit, Amala. You ever think about that? What was the other one?
Good schools, good parents, good habits, and good communities.
So good habits? Okay, yeah, push for good habits, you know? But maybe there are some bad habits in these communities. I guess if you would want to say like disliking police is a bad habit or something, maybe it's because these communities have throughout history been adversarial with police because of systemic racism, because of historical racist policies that led to an over-criminalization of the black community for drug offenses as opposed to white people with those same drugs. We've all heard about the crack and the cocaine thing, right? How cocaine and crack cocaine are the same. They're just different forms of the drug, but they would criminalize the crack cocaine way more so than they would simply criminalize the cocaine. And conveniently enough, there happened to be a lot more crack cocaine in the black community because communities that are already adversarial with police are more likely to form community forms of protection, aka gangs. This is all part of systemic racism, Amala. And then you say good community. Again, these communities would only be bettered if there were more investment options, if there were better options for employment, if there wasn't such high rates of poverty, which would reduce on the rates of crime, which if there was less poverty and less crime, you would see property taxes increasing because the property would actually be worth more, which means that these schools would have more funding because they're funded on property taxes, and you would see all of these communities improve. So again, I don't know how you can be such a subhuman degenerate that you would actually step up here and say that, oh, if you just have a good school and have a mommy and daddy that are nice, then that'll go way longer than a bunch of racial justice movements. It's not either or, chumfuck. It's literally both. The racial justice movements address the systemic racism, and by doing so, you improve these things. You improve the schools and the parents and the habits and the community. Sorry, I tend to get really mad watching PragerU because it's like watching a bunch of pigeons sit down and write like a script combined with an AI that's only in beta mode.
Rules apply to everyone, regardless of skin color.
Okay, yes, they apply to everybody. You're totally right. Then how come it is that black people are disproportionately born into an environment where there's higher rates of poverty, higher rates of bad habits, and shittier schools, Amala? Why are those circumstances even there to begin with?
Conservatives have very little faith in computer models that have been inaccurately predicting disaster for nearly half a century. Conservatives have a lot of faith, however, in human ingenuity to overcome climate.
Yeah. How did all the conservatives do when Texas was frozen? Remember that one? Let's see. What happened to Ted Cruz? That's right. He ran away to the Cancun or some shit. And a bunch of other people were freezing, some freezing to death. How did humans step in and help that one, Amala?
What is air conditioning but a human adaptation to the environment? See my...
Guys, don't be scared of climate change, which 97% of all scientists agree is a thing that is occurring, cause air conditioning. Ooh woo. Amala, you are the reason why I hate conservatives. You're depicting it right now because you people are stupid as shit.
On guns. All want to live in a safe society. This is why firearms are regulated in every state.
Based.
But we know bad guys will always find a way to get guns. See Chicago and Baltimore.
The bad guys, and instantly points to Chicago. I like that one too.
For further reference. That's why conservatives want guns, to protect themselves from the bad guys. It's not...
Okay, so why can't you people just agree on some better regulations then? Have there be a longer wait time. You should provide 2 to 3 references. If you need to hand over references before getting an apartment, you should have to hand over some references before acquiring a deadly weapon. These are solutions that we could work with that I guarantee you Democrats and Republicans would be in favor with, but it's consistently the Republicans who shoot down even the most common sense gun regulations.
On tolerance. Conservatives see tolerance as a two-way street. If someone demands to be addressed by certain pronouns and considers it intolerant if you don't comply, conservatives wonder why that isn't intolerant.
Probably intolerant. Okay. Oh, God. This is just the tolerance paradox every single time. It's like, yes, you need to be tolerant, but if you are tolerant of the intolerant, then that ultimately leads to more intolerance. I know it's so hard for conservative pea-brains to get this through their little head, but it's not actually that challenging to understand. If I'm the big, tolerant, liberal soy boy, and because I am such a tolerant Starbucks barista, I have decided to tolerate the neo-Nazis. Well, the neo-Nazis are not particularly tolerant, and if they are able to get to a position of power, they will enact their intolerance to restrict freedom for everybody. There will be more intolerance by tolerating the intolerant. So, one is being intolerant because you're stupid and inconsiderate and refuse to follow the science, which says that using the preferred pronouns for trans people betters their mental health. Instead, you want to be an asshole and say, no, I'm going to call you what I want to call you. Because you're an asshole. There's no real logical grounding here. It's really funny how she's trying to explain the conservative position. See, the conservatives just see it from this view, guys. And then every single conservative view is either uninformed, blatantly stupid, or just malicious.
Why are a conservative's moral or religious beliefs less worthy of respect than anyone else's?
Because first of all, no one's saying that they're less worthy of respect. Second of all, who has moral or religious beliefs that oppose pronoun use? Who? Please show me in the Bible where it says, thou shall not use neo pronouns. Like, you have a pronoun, Amala. I have pronouns. The reason that the moral or religious beliefs are not fair justification to worsen another person's life is because, one, there is no real moral or religious grounding to refuse to use somebody's pronouns. You're using it as a front because at the end of the day, you don't like trans people. You think that trans people are a little gross, creepy, kind of give you that little uncomfy feeling in your tummy tum. And so you don't want to use their pronouns. That's it. The minute a conservative walks into a church and they say, hey, we're in a church, okay? We would prefer if you don't say this. Don't say the F word. Don't say this, okay? They're fine. You want to control my speech in a place of worship? Oh, absolutely. But then the minute someone's like, hey, can you use my pronouns? Suddenly you want to control their speech and you're actually the evil authoritarian Adolf Hitler reincarnated. There is no moral opposition to using people's pronouns. There is a moral argument as to why you should, because we know that using a trans person's preferred pronouns betters their mental well-being. And if you are bettering human well-being altogether, then I would say you are probably engaged in a moral action. It is far more moral to do the thing that has been empirically demonstrated to better human well-being rather than do the thing that has been empirically demonstrated to harm human well-being because you think that Sky Daddy might be mad. Fuck you.
On authoritarianism. Whenever conservatives win political power, they're typically trying to cut taxes and regulations, make the government smaller, and bolster constitutional freedoms like...
You're not trying to bolster constitutional freedoms. The conservatives have been consistently anti-constitution. Again, whether we're talking about advocating to lock people up for burning the American flag, whether we're talking about gay people not having rights to marriage, also cutting taxes and regulations can be beneficial sometimes. It can also be harmful. So it depends on how that's done. Make the government smaller. This is probably my least favorite conservative talking point. The government shouldn't be too big, Herbert. Okay, well, it really should be whatever size it needs to be to adequately do what the government should do. And the government exists to, a certain extent at least, serve the people. Absolutely. And if that requires an expansion of government in order to do so, then that might need to be done. Again, the government is for the people, made up of the people. Far too often conservatives, and honestly even the populist lefty types, treat the government like it's this secret elite cabal. No, the government is literally made up of individual Americans. Doesn't mean corruption can't exist, of course, but again, the government shouldn't just be smaller because small government good. I understand conservatives might really want to convince themselves that smaller is always better, but in certain cases, you might need to expand the government. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve ultimately.
That of speech and religion. That doesn't sound very authoritarian, does it? Progressive policy almost always raises taxes, expands regulations, increases the size of government, and now curtails free speech.
How does it curtail free speech? Please, oh God. Give me a single example of progressive policy curtailing free speech on a constitutional basis, please. For the love of God. Expanding regulations? Yeah, because sometimes you need regulations, Amala. Again, like small government regulations, these are not just good and bad in and of themselves, okay? This is, it depends. It is external. It's contingent upon external factors. There should be regulations when it comes to how many carbon emissions certain massive factories can produce or let into the atmosphere. There should be regulations there. There's where regulation would be good. Raising taxes, yeah, there are certain wealthy people that are taking advantage of tax loopholes so they don't actually have to pay taxes that are in line with the average everyday American. You should be paying your fair share of taxes. Raising taxes on the wealthy is sometimes a good thing. Increasing the size of the government depends why they're increasing the size of the government. It's not just bad because curtailing free speech. She's not going to give an example, but I would love to hear just one, please.
To a conservative, that sounds authoritarian.
Yeah, because conservatives are stupid and progressives aren't doing this, or the way they're doing it is not being adequately communicated because they're too busy watching PragerU and jerking off to furry porn.
Well, now that you've heard a few of their arguments, do you dislike conservatives less than you did before?
Oh, that is so funny. Is this a parody? Am I getting clowned? She's like, so now that you've heard the arguments, I bet you're not hating conservatives as much, huh? You're right, Amala. I hate them more now. Thank you. You've managed to make me hate conservatives even more than I previously thought I did. Because before, I used to think there was this little glimmer of hope inside of me that maybe, just maybe, conservatives were just ignorant. But you're demonstrating that a good portion of conservatives are actually incredibly self-aware of their arguments, how their arguments can be perceived, how their arguments might even be wrong, and yet they just continue rolling with it cause liberal bad. Are you a little bit more cool with the conservatives now? No, Amala, you have failed your goal. I hate them more now. Thank you.
Not even a little? I'm Amala Epinobi, host of Unapologetic at PragerU.com for Prager University.
You suck. What a dumb video. Holy shit.